Hey guys, it's Sid and welcome back to my channel. Now today we're going to be making another very popular flower of mine, which is the heritage rose. Ever since I uploaded pictures of this beautiful rose, I've received lots of requests for a tutorial. So today we are going to be making that. So without further ado, let's get started. So what we're first going to do is we're going to get our knife, and you don't want to cut it completely off. You just want to cut a small section of the ball off. So I'm just going to cut just a small amount. Just like so. And you'll also need a scalpel. And with the scalpel, you're just going to cut it ever so slightly in the middle in a cross design. Be careful with whilst doing this step. And then we're just going to cut out the edges of it as well. And you want to really control the blade when doing this. You don't have to take it right towards the edge. And you just want to go all the way around. Just like so. And be sure to put all your blades and your knives away. So just like that. And then with your spoon, you're just gonna pull the bits that we've cut out. Just scoop them out. And you should end up with something like that. And then to that, what we're going to do is we're just going to cut our wire off, and we're just going to poke it through right in the middle all the way to the other side of the ball. Bring it down and then put it across and just twist to tighten it up. And again, if it's loose like mine is always loose. We're just gonna tighten it up using some tweezers or some pliers, whatever you can tighten it with. Until it's really secure. Now that our bud's ready, and it doesn't matter if your wire is showing in the middle, that doesn't matter at all. So I'm just going to quickly clean this up, and then we'll get started doing the inside petals. Now that we've cleaned this up, we're going to get our icing and start making our petals for the inside center. So we're going to get some icing. You only need a tiny amount for this bit. And I've already pre-dyed mine in a nice cream colour, sort of an off-white colour. And then you want to put it through your pasta machine and get it really nice and thin. And then we're going to use our smallest petal cutters, and we're just going to cut out 2 of each size. and just place them in our storage board. Or because we're doing 3 lots of these, you can also cut out some more if you have enough paste. Rolled out. And once we've cut out all 12 of our petals, you want to take 2 of your largest petals and just with a rolling pin, just thin them out a little all the way to the edge of the petal. Just to make the petal a little bit big. And then with our Dresden tool, all we're going to do is we're going to get the flat side, the thinnest side of the Dresden tool, and with the flat section, I'm just going to curl it in. Just like so, from the tips. And you're going to maneuver the Dresden tool as you go on each side, and you just want to do that to the whole petal from the top to the bottom. There we go, just curling it in. And then we're going to do the same to that one. Just like so. And then we're going to do the same to the smallest 2. And then you're going to get your brush and we're going to apply glue to the bottom section of the petal. And we're going to start off with a large petal. And then we're just going to put the other large petal on top of that. But you want the heights to be varied. So you don't want them all at the same length in height. And then we're going to do the same for this one. We're going to add some more glue at the bottom. And then we're going to place a smaller petal on top. Again, not at the same height. And then we're going to do the same with our last one. And just pop that in there as well. And once you've done one set, you want to work through the other 2 sets exactly the same way as we've done with these. So you have 3 sets in total, and you can also cover these whilst you work on the other 2 sets. So use exactly the same technique and work on the other 2 sets. So now that we've got all 3 sets, we're just going to pick one of them up and we're just going to fold across the entire set and overlap with the other one. We're not going to touch the top section of this because we don't want to ruin the little curled edges that we've made. And we're just going to get some glue and we're just going to apply some at the bottom just so it overlaps and sits there. And just pinch them tightly to secure that bit. And then do exactly the same with the other 2. So fold it in half first and then overlap that with the other side, just the bottom bit only. And then if you need some glue, you can always apply some glue to that section and then just pinch them to secure it. And I'm just going to let these air dry for a couple of minutes, just so when I place them in the center, they're able to hold their shape. And because we're going to be covering the whole section, so we're not going to be seeing the center of the bud, we don't need to put some icing in the middle. Whilst they're set, I'm just going to show you if you have some gaps that you want to fill in the center. All you do is you just take single petals, and I'll just show you how to do them very quickly whilst they're still setting. And you can either use a small one or a larger one, whichever you want, but just in case I want to cover my gaps, I'm just going to do 2 small ones and 1 large one. So I'm going to pop that back in. And again, we're just going to thin. You can also use a ball tool for this if you prefer. If it's a little bit tacky, just let it air dry. And then again, just with the Dresden tool, just curl them in. It's really easy once you get the hang of it to do this. And then once we come to filling the section, I'll show you how to place these as well. So if you want, you can do the other 2 or however many you've cut out for the extras. There we go. And now that our other petals have dried as well, what we're going to do is we're going to get some glue and we're going to apply it in the center part of the bud. And then we're going to snip off a little bit of the center petals. Just like so. And we're just going to place them standing up in the center. Pressing down to secure them in the bud, just like so. And then we're going to add another one next to it. Again, try not to touch it, the top section, and just push with the tips of your fingers at the bottom, just inserting it in and securing it. And then the third one. And then once you get to your third one, you can always just use your Dresden tool and position it with that. Just like so. Just like that. And then with your other petals, if you want to cover these gaps, then you want to do the exact same thing. You want to fold them up in half and then snip off the tips, but just a tiny bit. Apply some glue to the bottom section and just position them where you want them to be. Just like that. And then we can do the rest as well. So once you've done the center, it should look something like this. So this is the finished center of my heritage rose, and I'm now going to make the supporting petals. for which we're going to need around 5 to 6 petals of the largest petal of the 2 cutters. And from this point onwards, you'll need your apple tray as well. If you're working with a bigger bowl or a smaller bowl, the petals will vary depending on that. So I'm going to cut around 7 to 8. The petals of the outside layers depend on the size of the bud you are using, and any extra paste you have, just pop it in your storage board. So once you've done that, just grab a petal. If it's a little bit tacky, just let it air dry. And what we're going to do is we're only going to thin them for this row, for the supporting petals. We're not going to use a Dresden tool at all for this first row especially. And we're just going to thin them out using our ball tool or our rolling pin. I'd like to use a rolling pin as it thins out the majority of the petal. So I like to use a rolling pin, but you can use whatever you want. And we're just going to thin them out, just like so. It doesn't matter if it's a little tacky and it overlaps whilst you do this. But because they're supporting petals, you're not going to see these. And we want these petals to be cupped a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop them in the apple tray and give them that cupped shape. So my apple tray is right here. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop them in the middle of the tray and just let them dry in there for a few minutes, just until they still have their flexibility, but they're also able to hold their cup shape. And then just press it down in the middle there, just like that. And then do that to all the petals that you have. So now that they've had sufficient time to dry, we're gonna add them to our bud. And because these are supporting petals, we're just gonna cover the left and right side of the petal and a little bit from the bottom. And can you see how they're still flexible, but they've still got that cup shape? That's what we want. So just keep gluing the petals. So if you want to use larger petals, then you'll use less of them, and if you use smaller petals, then you'll use more. So once that's on, all you're going to do is you're going to place it at the bottom, so right underneath the center. We don't want it going above for this time, just so the mere purpose of this row is to cover the bud, so you don't see any of it. So we're just going to press and we're going to tightly pull it and drag it down so it leaves no gap in the center and the bud. And you're just going to keep adding all of them. So go around, make sure you overlap by a half and stretch the sides. So if need be, place your thumb on one side and stretch and bring it down from the other side just to tighten up the petal, and then just stick. And that way you'll see that there's no gaps and you can't see the bud at all. So you want to go around doing that to all of them to cover the whole bowl. So once you've done the first row, it will look like this. And now we're going to wait for this to fully dry before moving on to our next row. So now that the flour has completely dried, we're going to move on to making our first proper row, for which we're going to cut out 7 petals. And I'm going to use the largest cutter from the two that I used for the center for this row, and then for the next row I'm going to use the next eyes up. And then with your rolling pin, we're going to first let them air dry. If they're a little bit tacky, which mine are, once they've had a little time to dry, we're going to start thinning them out. Again, you could also use a ball tool for this. And then all we're going to do is get our veiner and just put it in the middle, flattening it out in the center, and then just pop the second one on top and apply some pressure. And you'll get some really nice veining detail. And then we're just going to peel it off, and then we're going to pop it in our apple tray. So we need that cup shape again. And then just press it down the middle as you would. And then you just want to repeat with the remaining petals. Once we've done all our petals, we're going to leave them to dry in the apple tray for a few minutes until they're still flexible to apply, but they still have that cup shape that we're looking for. So once these petals have dried, we're going to start sticking them onto our flower. And for this, I'm going to again glue the left and the right side of the petal down. And this time we're going to place our first petal on the join of our previous row, and we're going to place it a little bit higher than that row. And again, we're just going to stretch both sides down to tighten the petal, and you'll see a little bit of a gap there, and that's what we want. We don't want it too tight, but we want a little bit of gap in there so you're able to see the previous row. And we're just going to overlap that by a half and place our next petal. Again, stretch the petal from one side or both sides just to tighten it up. And you want to keep going all the way around, but be sure to stretch the petal as you keep placing the next ones on. You can then use your Dresden tool just to open them up a little bit, but not too much at this stage. So that's our second row done. Well, our first proper row after the supporting petals. And for the next row, we're going to do the exact same thing and just go in a circular motion again, thinning the petal all the way to the edge. And this time we're going to vein it, and we're going to use our Dresden tool and curl the top edges in like we did with the centers. So after you've veined it, we're going to flip it over so the outside of the petal is facing you, and we're just going to curl the top bits from the top left and right side of the petal. And then we're going to pop it in the apple tray again, facing down. So the curly bits will be facing outwards. And we're going to pop it in the apple tray to get that nice little cup shape again. But this time you don't want to press it too in. You just want to throw your petal in there and just leave it at that. And then do the rest. So now that they've dried, we're gonna start gluing them on. And again, we're going to glue the left and right side of the petals. And all we're going to do is we're going to start adding them on a join of the previous row, but at the same height. And again, just stretch and tighten the petals. But you still want a gap in between the rows that you can see that's visible. And then again, just stick. And then overlap. And add the second petal, again at the same height. And an easier way to do that is just to hold the left side and stretch it with your right and bring it down. Then we want to pull our first one back. And just tuck that one underneath. And then pull back our first one. And then if you want, you can, using a dresden tool, just open them up slightly. And that's what it should look like once this row's on. Now we're going to add our last and final row. So for our final row, you can either go ahead and use the same size cutter as we've just used for this row, or you can get the next size up and use that one instead. But that's completely up to you. Again, it depends on your bud size and how big you want the rows to be, or how many rows of petals you want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the same size. And I'm going to cut around the same petals. So for the last row, we're going to get our icing and do exactly the same. And then we're going to leave them into the apple tray to dry. Exactly the same way as we've done with these rows here. Thinning them out, putting them in the veiner, and then curling the edges. And you can cut out as many petals as you want to use for this row. You can use as little as 4 if you don't want them overlapping each other, or if you want them to overlap, then you can use more. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the exact same thing and then come back and show you how we'll apply them. I'm going to start by adding our new petal over a join of the previous one, and you just want to place it a little bit below than the previous row, or at the same height but not above it. And you just want to stretch the petals again across to make them tight. You can either overlap them by a half as you normally would, or you can just put them next to each other side by side as like that, whatever you want. I actually prefer overlapping them so it gives us a more full rose. And again, you just want to keep going. And once you finish the rows, you can just use your Dresden tool to open them up ever so slightly. And with that being our final row, you want to leave this to fully dry before adding any colour or any more rows. But because I'm going to be showing how to dust one of these roses, I'm going to pop it in the oven for around 10 to 15 minutes on the lower setting, just to speed up the drying process, so I'm able to show you how to dust this rose. So after I've popped it in the oven and I've taken it out, it's nice and firm now. And all you need to do for that is just put it in your oven for around 10 to 15 minutes on your lower setting, really. And it'll just be really dry once it's out. It'll be pretty firm. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to get some of my colour. It looks gorgeous as it is, and really I don't want to dust it, but I'm going to show you how to dust and make it look a little bit more realistic. But it does look beautiful as it is. And I've just added some peach, some pink, and a little bit of green as well. You don't need huge amounts, you just need tiny amounts. And all we're going to do is we're going to start off by just getting some green on the tips of the brush and just slowly dusting the edges of the center first. And you don't want to go too dark, just ever so slightly get those curled bits of the flower. Once you colour a flower, it really brings it to life. So just add little bits of green there. To the centre like that. And just keep going. But again, you don't want to go too dark with this process. You just want to keep it natural and just go with the flow. And you really want to blend it in as well. And then I'm just going to go in and add a bit of pink, but I don't want to add too much of the pink. So I'm just going to coat the brush and then just take some off. And I'm just going to dust the top edges of the petals. I'm not going to do all the petals. I'm going to do some green, some pink, some peach. So each petal is not going to have all three colours. They're going to vary. And you're better off using a flat brush for the top edges and a more fluffy round one for the sides. But I'm just going to use this brush for all of the work. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some peach. Again, we're not going to go too dark. And just keep going. little bit more green. And some petals you can do darker than the others. And some petals you can do just light, very lightly. But remember, they don't have to be the same in colour. And they don't all need to be coloured as well. So some can have very little colour, some can have no colour, and some can have some darker colour. Just be sure to keep it varied. And then that's our finished flower. Just going to put the colour to one side. That's the full completed flower. So guys, this is our completed flower. I absolutely love how each petal has a different movement and the colours have come across so nicely. And I'm really liking the centre of this rose as well. So this is my heritage rose. And you can even dust them to whatever colours you want. So you don't have to use these specific colours, you can use whatever colours you want. So I'm hoping to bring across as many tutorials as I possibly can during this difficult time for all of us. So stay tuned to my channel for more tutorials, and do subscribe to the channel, whichever part of the video it shows up in, and do stay tuned for more videos. And I hope you like all my tutorials. Do like, comment and share them as well as much as you can with your friends and family. I'll be back next time with another new video, and I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial as well. Bye, take care of yourselves, and thank you for watching.